What's going on, everybody? It's etaprime back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the all-new MSI Claw 7 AI Plus, or as I like to call it, the MSI Claw 2. And when compared to the original MSI Claw 7, this is a major upgrade. But recently on the channel, we also took a look at the MSI Claw 8 AI Plus. That's the big boy with the 8-inch display and 80 watt-hour battery. But what we have here is the successor to the original MSI Claw. And like I mentioned, we've got upgrades across the board. In my opinion, this is what the original Claw should have been out of the box when it was launched. So first things first, the overall design. If you've seen the original Claw, you might not notice many differences here, and it really comes down to subtle things like the button shapes and the rear palm rest here. But where the major changes happen are internally, because with this we've got a much more powerful CPU, iGPU combo. It is keeping that same battery size, 53 watt hour, and that same 7-inch 1080p 120Hz VRR display. Taking a look at the top of the unit, we still have that power button / fingerprint sensor, micro SD card reader, but now instead of one USB 4 port, we've got two USB 4s up top, a 3.5mm audio jack, and our volume rocker. Overall, I've always thought that the MSI Claw was a pretty comfortable handheld to hang on to for long periods of time, and I also think it's a pretty good looking handheld. Round back, they did change the ergonomics just a bit, definitely for the better. Really comfortable, hugs the palm. We've got Hall-based analog sticks and Hall-based triggers. Some decent throw here for the triggers. A little more would be nice, but it does work out pretty well. We've also got a brand new D-pad design. This is actually the same D-pad we've seen in the Claw 8 AI Plus. We will test it out by the end of the video, but I'll tell you, it works great. It's just a bit sharp. The overall shape has been changed on it. Center M has been updated just like it was on the MSI Claw 8 AI Plus. And we've got their new overlay system, which is actually integrated with Microsoft's Game Bar. So this is something I think we're going to be seeing on other handhelds down the road. Kind of nice to see Microsoft working hand in hand with these hardware manufacturers. I've had this unit in my possession for about 3 days and I've used it consistently. I personally think performance here is great, and when it comes to the overall specs, we've got that Intel Core Ultra 7 258V. Really great performer. We've got a powerful iGPU, 8 cores, 8 threads with a clock up to 4.8 GHz, the ARC 140V iGPU up to 1950 MHz, and this has 8 Xe2 cores. 32 gigabytes of LPDDR5 running at 8,533 megahertz. Out of the box, it's got a 512 gigabyte 2230 M.2 NVMe SSD. It is PCIe 4.0. 120 Hz 7-inch 1080p IPS display. It supports VRR, and we've got a brightness up to 500 nits. Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.3, and a 53 watt-hour battery. Before we talk about anything else, I just wanted to show you a little bit of performance here with Fortinite. I personally don't play this, but I know there's a lot of people out there that do play this game, so I figured I'd go ahead and show it off on this thing. Right now, we're at 1080 medium with XeSS set to balance, running it at a 17 watt TDP. We're getting an average of around 74 FPS with it set up like this, and if you wanted to go up to high, you definitely could. We've got more wattage that we could throw at this. There's an 8 watt, 17 watt, and a 30 watt setting. At 30 watts, you can run this at high with no XeSS and see around 90 FPS on average. Or if you want to take it up to 120 to match that screen's refresh rate, you can turn on some XeSS and get on up there. It'll actually play it like that all day long. The next thing I wanted to take a look at were some 3D Mark benchmarks that I ran on this device. First up, we've got Night Raid coming in with a 33,826. And to give you an idea of how this stacks up against the Ryzen Z1 Extreme, I've run it several times on the ROG Ally X. Over there, we're looking at around 29,266. Firestrike, 8,634. On the Z1 Extreme, 7,556. And finally, we've got Time Spy here, breaking 4,000, coming in with 4,289. On the Z1 Extreme, around 3,502. So yeah, we've seen this before with the Intel Core Ultra 258V and these synthetic benchmarks that definitely can beat out that Z1 Extreme. Jumping in here with my game capture, I wanted to give you a better look at everything, specifically Center M and our overlay. Center M has been updated since the last time I reviewed the Claw AI 8. Few bug fixes here and there, and a couple things have been changed that I mentioned in that video. And as soon as we start this up by pressing the dedicated Center M button on the Claw, we're going to be greeted with our game section. This is automatically going to scan our directories, get our games set up for us. We can start them directly from here, but if we take a look over here, gaming platform, Steam, Ubisoft, Xbox, Epic. If I click on one of these, basically it's going to open up a web browser, take me over to where I can download it. One thing they did add here with the new update is the ability to change our thumbnail. So this is pretty nice, and this is something I mentioned in my AI8 video. We just didn't have the ability to do it then, but if we go to game profile, you can see game cover, background settings. We can customize. What I'm going to do is just find an image here. And there you have it. So yeah, we can also change that background. Really like the fact that we can do this because a game like Fortnite definitely looks a little plain Jane. Most of the Epic games that I have installed do look a little odd here, so you can manually change these very easily. We can add a game from, let's say, an external drive. We can also just go directly to our game library. And let's say you've got some tools installed from Steam. You can actually delete them completely. Let's say 3D Mark. That's one that'll automatically scan and import for us. I've already deleted it. If we go up here, we can just make the selection and delete whatever we don't want. So yeah, for our game launcher, it looks pretty good here. Moving down to our user scenario. This is going to be our performance settings. So we've got the AI engine, and if we go to advanced settings, utilize AI to provide real-time optimized system adjustments based on the usage context. This does seem to work pretty decently. It'll also change the lights and performance, or you can disable lights altogether. Endurance, this is going to be our maximum battery life. And of course, we've got a manual mode. We've still only got 3 TDP levels, 8 watts, 17, 30 watts, and we've got a full fan adjustment. So we can go through, set this exactly how we like. I'm usually in auto mode. 17 watts has been pretty decent here, but for some newer AAA games, at 1080p, sometimes I do have to take it up to that 30 watt threshold. But yeah, really hope we do get kind of a slider. I'd like to be able to go from 8 watts up to 30 all the way in between. So 9, 10, 11, 12, just kind of dial it in right there. I think that would be really nice. That way we could get the maximum battery life or performance, however you're looking to set everything up. Control mode, gamepad mode, desktop mode. We can remap all of the buttons on the claw. Set the dead zones, outer threshold on the sticks. Combination keys, rear macro keys can be set up from here, and we've got some combination keys that we can use. So if you wanted to have a combination key to open up that virtual keyboard, macro 1, macro 2, and up on the D-pad, it'll automatically open up that keyboard for us. And of course, we can fully calibrate every button on this unit. Gamepad mode, basically the same thing here. So key mapping, stick adjustment, trigger adjustment, vibration, macro, combination keys, calibration, and gyro. I'm personally not a huge gyro fan, but I know there's a lot of people out there that love using it. From gyro behavior, you can set it up to work as a left stick, right stick, or mouse. For something like an FPS, I usually have the right stick here, and I mainly just use it for iron sights. Gyro enabled button, always, or we can set up kind of a hotkey to disable it. News and updates. So from here, a little bit of news, not too much on these newer devices, mainly looking at settings for the first claw, update center, and we can head over to the MSI forum if we want to get some information. Connection, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and finally we've got our settings here. Mystic lights, few different modes that we can use, steady, breathe, color cycle, wave, info mode, and we can completely disable it. Info mode is actually pretty cool, so it'll be green in gamepad mode, blue in desktop mode, and red in MSI mode. I'm going to go with color cycle here. Noise cancellation, media gallery for our screenshots, system information, service, and general settings. Reset MSI Center M settings. Just give you a heads up, it's right here just in case you get stuck with Center M or something goes wrong. Hitting this reset can help out in most cases. So I think MSI has done a pretty decent job with the new update to Center M, but we still need full TDP control. That's something I've been begging for. And yeah, we can use a third-party application, but it'd be really nice to just have a nice manual mode over here with a slider from, if we can only go down to 8 watts, that's fine, up to 30, but I want to be able to go all the way in between also. So that's Center M. We can access it at any time. We've also got our quick settings. And again, this is integrated with the Microsoft bar or the Xbox bar built into Windows 11. Love to see this, and I do think more manufacturers will jump on board with something like this. But from quick settings, I mean, we've got all of the basics. Our user mode, gamepad, we can swap between gamepad, desktop. We can bring up our on-screen keyboard at any time. We can free up some memory, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and we've got a real-time monitor. Personally, I like using Afterburner, but from here, it's going to give us the battery percentage, CPU power, CPU usage and speed, GPU usage, and the RPM of the fan. Show desktop. At any time, it'll bring us to the desktop. And again, since it's integrated with the Windows game bar, we've got our friends, audio, so we've got a mix and voice, our screenshots, performance, this is the built-in Windows 11 performance monitor here, achievements, and our widgets. So I'm actually in the widget store right now. If we want to add Spotify, we can do so. Give it a second, and then we'll be able to access that widget from the game bar at any time. I think that's a pretty cool feature. If you use Spotify, you can definitely have some music going at any time on your device. And finally here, we've got our settings. So it's really up to you how you want to set everything up. But I do like the fact that we've got this integrated with the game bar, and it's been working pretty decently on the new Claw 7. And I forgot, down here we've got the end task, take screenshot, and record screen. Now, I want to test out this D-pad for you. Again, it works great, but the edges on this thing are a bit sharp the way they designed it. Now, it doesn't hurt your finger or anything like that. It's just something that I'm not used to. I like a separated, traditional D-pad. But with Street Fighter 6 here, I mean, I can pull off every move. I haven't missed any of them. I'm actually really impressed with this D-pad. And the way you need to play with this is kind of on top of the edges. And it doesn't feel like it has a lot of roll. In fact, it's a harder D-pad. But the execution here is excellent with what they've done. I'll tell you, in the past 3 days, I've been playing a lot of fighting games on this thing. And, the main reason is the D-pad itself. It just works really well. But also, we're seeing some really great performance here. With newer 3D fighting games, 17 to 20 watts, 1080 medium settings, you're going to run basically everything out there. And when it comes to older stuff, you want to do some emulation, you can drop this down to 8 watts. And most of the time, it's not even pulling 8 watts. But yeah, it's going to run them great. And speaking of that 8 watt TDP area, with these indie games, that's really all you're going to need. And if you use the third-party application like Throttle Stop, you can take it down to around 5 watts for games like this. They're going to run at full speed, and you're going to save a lot of battery. So going from 8 watts down to 5 watts with these games, you can gain anywhere of 1.5 hours to 2.5 hours of runtime out of this battery, just dropping that wattage down a bit. Now I'm going to set this thing down stationary and test out a few more games. We've got Cyberpunk 2077, 1080 medium, XeSS automatically goes to auto. You could take it to balanced, but I think that's about where we are. It might drop down to performance in that auto mode, but at a 30 watt TDP with Cyberpunk 2077, 1080 medium, we're getting an average of around 78 FPS. And if you don't mind dropping this down to low settings, you can net around 78. And you can get even more out of it by dropping the resolution. At 900p, seeing an average of around 83 at low settings, 30 watt TDP. Next up, Black Myth Wukong, and this is just one of those games you have to drop the settings down or use frame gen. And I didn't want to use frame gen with this because right now inside of the game we only have access to FSR frame gen. The Intel Core 258V does support Intel's new XeSS2 frame generation, but unfortunately there's only a few games at the time I'm making this that support it, so I really do hope it's widely adopted. But right now at 900 low with XeSS set to 60%, 73 FPS on average, and it's fully playable like this. And I would have went with FSR frame gen. It does work on this chip, but there are a few games where it's a bit wonky, and this is one of those games when using FSR frame gen with one of these Intel chips. It does get a bit choppy every once in a while, but games like God of War Ragnarok with frame gen on do work great with the 258V. And the final one I have here is Spider-Man Miles Morales, 900p medium with IGTI scaling set to balanced. 30-watt TDP. So I'll tell you, I was seeing better performance on the Claw 8 AI Plus with this game, and I'm not exactly sure if it's the new driver update or whatnot. But yeah, with that, I mean, we were actually able to do 1080 at the same kind of frame rate that we're seeing here. On this, I had to drop it down to 900p. And again, I do think it's the driver update that kind of gave us worse performance with this. But I mean, it's still playable at 900p. Before I wrap this video up, I wanted to talk about battery life. And on screen right now, I do have the total battery draw listed at the very bottom. We'll zoom in a bit more. The first game we took a look at, Shredder's Revenge, I was at an 8-watt TDP from M-Center. I also used the third-party application known as Throttle Stop to take it down to a 5-watt TDP with Indie Games, and that really does give us much better battery life. But I also went through and tested at a 17-watt TDP and a 30-watt TDP from M-Center. I used Cyberpunk 2077 here just to kind of gauge what this thing's drawing from that battery. 50% screen brightness, RGB off, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth on, volume at about 30%. And remember, in the new Claw 7, we've got a 53 watt-hour battery. So for this initial battery life estimate, at an 8-watt TDP from M-Center with 2D games like Shredder's Revenge, the Claw 7 AI Plus draws a total of 10.5 watts from the battery. That's going to give us around 5 hours of runtime. But I know for a fact that a lower TDP, it'll run those indie games just fine. I've actually done a lot of testing with the 258p. So using Throttle Stop, I set it to a custom 5-watt TDP, and now the thing only draws 6.7 watts. And it's actually 0.1 watt more than the 8 AI Plus, which is a bit odd because that has a much larger screen. But that takes us from 5 hours of runtime up to 7 hours and 54 minutes just by dropping the TDP down by 3 watts. And that's why I want a custom adjuster inside of M-Center. At a 17-watt TDP, worst case scenario, running Cyberpunk 2077, 1080 high, 27-watt draw, around 2 hours. And at a 30-watt TDP, maxed out from M-Center, Cyberpunk 2077, 1080 high, around 45-watt total draw from the battery, so you're going to get around an hour of runtime, a little over an hour. And I kind of figured that this would be the case given that we've only got a 53 watt-hour battery in this unit. So far, with the time I've spent playing around with the new MSI Claw 7 AI Plus, I've had a really good time with it. I think we're seeing some excellent performance from that 258V. It's definitely a major upgrade over the original MSI Claw, but if you're looking for that battery life, they do offer the Claw 8 AI Plus with an 80 watt-hour battery. And with that, I mean, the runtime is significantly up. Going from a 53 watt-hour to an 80 really makes a difference with this same chip here. And I never really had an issue with ergonomics on the original MSI Claw 7. With this, they did redesign a few things, button shapes and the rear palm rest. We've also got 2 USB 4 ports now, so we've got that extra port. And yeah, I mean, overall, it's not a bad little system. But again, if you're looking for maximum runtime and you still want to pick up a Claw, I would go for the Claw 8 AI Plus. I still want to spend a few more days with this before I do an official review video. And if there's anything else you want to see running in that video, let me know in the comments below. We can test some more games here. Going over to Linux isn't going to work out too well right now, I know for a fact, but we could test it in the future if that's something you're interested in. And if you want to learn a little more about the new MSI Claw 7 AI Plus or even the 8 AI Plus, I'll leave some links in the description. But that's going to wrap it up for this first look video. If you've got any questions, let me know down below. And like always, thanks for watching.